Today we'll be discussing inventory control and system design. Inventory control is fundamental for a sturdy organization. Managers must carefully build their plans for their inventory needs. Poor inventory control can undermine an organization. Good inventory control will raise your organization's performance. Managers must build good inventory control into their organization's structure. A good inventory system is needed to meet organizational needs with minimum costs. Inventories must meet many organizational needs. Often, needs that are in conflict with each other. Different inventory types exist to cover these needs. Such inventories include transit, buffer, anticipation, decoupling, and cycle. Transit inventory is inventory that's going from one place to another. Buffer inventory are inventories that allow for sudden surges in demand. Anticipation are inventories that are built up in anticipation of expected demands, such as when toy companies increase the number of toys for the Christmas buying season. Decoupling allows for reducing needed links between areas in an organization, and cycle inventory are used to meet cyclical changes in demand. Inventories can also exist in different forms: raw materials, operating, work in process, and as finished goods. There are 5 main inventory associated costs. There's the cost of the inventory itself. There are the costs associated with having the inventory: ordering costs, carrying costs, managerial time associated with dealing with inventory. There are also costs associated with not having the inventory: stockout costs and opportunity costs. Stockout costs come when you have to make a quick order to resupply the inventory, or have your workers put in overtime to resupply the inventory. Opportunity costs come from what happens when a customer wants to purchase some of your goods and you don't have it available. This may mean that the customer may go to a competitor and you may lose that customer. Managers must make 3 major inventory ordering related decisions. How should the cost of having inventory be balanced against not having inventory? Having inventory, you'll have the costs associated with excess inventory on hand, storage. However, this should be balanced against not having inventory, opportunity costs, and stockout costs. Managers must also decide when should new inventory be ordered. This decision will be partly based on the decision of the trade-offs between having inventory and not having inventory and the costs associated, and how quickly you should order or replenish inventory. You also need to decide how much inventory should be ordered. The more inventory you order at a given time, the easier it will be for you to have volume discounts in ordering and lower managerial costs associated with making multiple purchases. However, having more inventory will mean that you'll have to cover storage costs and tie up your capital in unused inventory. One method of controlling inventory is to use the ABC method to prioritize inventory. The ABC method is based on prioritizing and controlling inventory based on the item's relative inventory value. Usually, a small proportion of items will account for a large proportion of inventory value. Now, value is not always cost. Sometimes you can have items that don't cost you much but have a high level of value. For example, coffee beans don't cost much, but for a coffee shop to run out of coffee means that there will be serious loss of customer goodwill. Therefore, the coffee beans have high value, even though their costs may be relatively low. This inventory characteristic, the fact that a small number of inventory items account for most of the value, has similar analogues in sales, complaints, and other system areas. The idea is that a small proportion of items in any set generally account for a disproportionate amount of the value or attention that needs to be paid to them. Managers should exploit this system characteristic to determine what inventory areas need the most attention. Inventory can be classified into three groupings, designated A, B, and C, and hence the term ABC inventory method. The A group items are the small percentage, usually around 20%, of items that account for a high percentage, usually around 75%, of annual inventory value. Obviously, this is the group of items that you need to pay the most attention to. The B group are medium value items, 30% of inventory that accounts for 15% of inventory value. The C group is the large percentage, usually around 50% of inventory that only accounts for 10% of inventory value. Once inventory has been classified, due diligence can be given to each category. The A category should receive the greatest attention. These are the items that your organization most depends on for its continued growth and health. Also, it tends to be a fairly small number of items, so you can pay greater attention to those items and track what's happening with the inventory. The B category should receive moderate attention. Usually items in this category are used to help produce or maintain items from the A category, and therefore necessary but not as valuable as the A category items. For example, machine oil. Machine oil may be necessary for continued maintenance of your machines that produce your output, and therefore you need to make sure that you have enough machine oil for smooth functioning equipment. But it's the kind of item that you don't, since it is generally low cost and can be easily stored, you don't need to pay as much attention to the item. C category should receive the least attention, floor wax. Unless you're a company that sells floor wax or are a janitorial service, floor wax is not an item that you need to pay much attention to. It's nice to have it to make sure your floors look shiny, but not really necessary to produce your items or sell to your customers. Pencils, paper clips, office supplies are all items that generally fall into the C category. They're generally inexpensive, not critical to business operations, and so therefore need minimal amounts of attention. Other good inventory control methods include EOQ, EPQ, and ROP. The EOQ, Economic Order Quantity method, only considers carrying and ordering costs. This method applies to items that are ordered in batches. The method's assumptions are constant demand of the inventory item, no shortages of the item are allowed, lead times are known for between ordering the item and receiving the item, there are no order size cost differences. It doesn't matter whether you order one of the item or 1,000 of the items, the cost will be the same, and item order independence. There's no effect on making an order today on your order tomorrow. While if the assumptions are met, an optimum order quantity can be calculated. While assumptions do not have to be exactly met to use this method, in many situations the assumptions will be impractical, and therefore this method is not useful. The economic production quantity, EPQ, is used to replenish inventory before it is exhausted. This method is more appropriate when a good is made within the organization, rather than ordered from outside the organization and then sold as a service item. In this method, inventory is gradually accumulated and consumed. You slowly build up the inventory, and then you slowly sell the inventory. ROP, reorder point models, are used to determine when inventory should be ordered. This model addresses the uncertainty in reordering. It also addresses the need for safety stock and service level. In other words, that you may need to have certain amount of inventory on hand so that you don't run out of stock and you can provide your customers with their desired purchases. The higher those two levels are, the more inventory that must be maintained. How can you implement better inventory control to create organizational growth? Poor inventory control can cause a flood of costs or a drought of materials. Good inventory management leads to optimum material availability. Good inventory control is a boon for all organizations. You can use inventory management as a strategic asset. All pictures used in this screencast are from the public domain.